Greetings and welcome to another Warhammer 40,000 Kill Team video. Today I'm going to talk about and rate the missions for match play with Kill Team. I'll be going through each one basically in 3 tiers, so rating my favorite missions, okay missions, and then missions that aren't really that good. And it's basically a good tool for you as a player, as well as someone who wants to run events, to basically go, what good tournament games are there for you to use? Well, in a tournament, basically, what should you run and what probably you should stay away from? But yeah, before we get into things, please remember to like and subscribe, as well as comment as what you thought of the video and if it was any help to you. But yeah, I'll get into the missions shortly, because I've been meaning to talk about the missions for a while, because I've already done a review on TAC Ops, and missions have been kind of overlooked, I would say. No one's really focusing them on too much, and I've seen a lot of people ask, what games should I run for a tournament, or what mission should I avoid? And I think, I've played all of the missions, some more than I would have liked to, and I've played in a few tournaments, well, a lot of tournaments. And yeah, I just think it would be good to give my feedback as to what I rate, and hopefully it'll be useful for you to use yourself for your own implementation. But yeah, as I said in the intro, I will be going through the best missions, then the okay missions, and then, the not good missions. So in a simple way, the best missions are missions I think are really well balanced and well rounded, offering a more interesting look at the game that focus more on than just holding objectives or just trying to kill your opponent first, and are quite balanced and interesting based on Kill Team as a whole. And I think those would be games that, you should probably always run in tournaments and are a good test of many types of kill teams. Then you've got your standard ones, which I think are just okay. They do have some flaws, some strong points, but generally you can run them with no issue. And then the ones I don't rate really well are ones you probably really should avoid because of the way they're written and balanced and the problems they cause with kill team interaction and also the game itself. But yeah, if you weren't aware, if you go onto your core book, on page 121, you have your list of 9 missions. So when you're normally playing, you roll a D3 and then another D3, because there's 3 tables. You have Loot and Salvage, Consecration, and Awaken the Data Spirits from Table 1. Table 2 has Escalating Hostilities, Seize Ground, and Domination. And Table 3 has Secure Architect, Duel of Wits, and Master the Terminals. And those are the 9 missions I'll be talking about today. So let's start off with the missions I rate as the best, and ones which are always fun to play and challenging, but in a good way. So first off, I'll start with Loot and Salvage. So this is mission 1.1. So as you can see on the deployment map, there are 6 objectives in this mission, and it has a special rule called Loot and Salvage, which is 1 action point, and you can perform this while in black of the center of an objective marker that controls it and has not been looted this turn. Until the start of your next turning point, that objective marker is looted. Each objective marker can only be looted a number of 3 times, and they recommend putting a dice. And as always, you can only score a maximum of 4 victory points per turn, per turning point for each player. So the cool thing about this mission is that there are 6 objectives, and all objectives, you don't really hold them, you have to spend action points to capture them. And there's lots of depth to this mission, because it's more than just standing around holding the objectives. And the main way to actually play this mission, in my opinion, is to try and alpha one of your opponent's objectives. Because if your opponent is slow or doesn't capture your ones, you can effectively go, okay, you can have 2 objectives. I'm going to drain one of your ones closer to the midline first, so then I can defend my 3 at the back, so I effectively will always be able to claim 3 while you're stuck with 2, and I can always have that, even if it's just for 1 turning point, you can have a slight edge on your opponent and basically get more maximum primary victory points than they can. Obviously, this mission is let down a bit by kill teams that can forward deploy, such as the Commandos and Pathfinders, or, can basically do pre-deployment moves. But overall, I think this is really cool, and especially shines towards kill teams that have group activation to operatives, because all of a sudden, generally they're not really used too much. They kind of just go, I'll double tap 2 of my guys into one of yours. But if you have group activation to operatives, you can go, I'll claim 2 objectives, before you can in a single turning point, which is just crazy, really cool. So I think it, like as I said, the reason I like this mission is it's not just standing and holding and killing. It's about running onto objectives, claiming them, and then trying to do them before your opponent, and actually trying to prevent your opponent scoring more from the primary by looting their objectives before they can get to them, and, you know, protecting your backfield. It's a really tactical mission, and as I said, it does have flaws with kill teams that can forward deploy, but that's very limited. And overall, I just think it's a really, really good and fun mission. It punishes people who want to sit back and be gun lines, which is a bad idea in general, and it punishes people who just run in and charge, because generally, unless you have like APL free, you're not really scoring objective, you're just running and killing, which, you know, may pay off in the end, but short term, it's not going to do you too well. So I think it's a really nice and fun mission that uses the action point system really well for Kill Team. Next is mission 1.3, which is Awaken the Data Spirits. So this is another 6 objective mission, but it's not actually what it seems. If you notice, you've got uplink A and uplink B objectives, and you've got firewall B and firewall A. So the way this mission works is you spend an action point to do disconnect firewall if you're within black of the center of an objective marker you control. You remove that marker from the kill zone, so you can do it on either firewall A or firewall B, not on your uplink objectives. And then for your scoring, each time you perform the disconnect firewall action, you score 1 victory point. At the end of each turning point, for each uplink objective marker that a friendly operative controls, you score victory points as follows. If both of the uplinks firewall objective markers have been removed, you score 2 VP. If only one, you score 1 VP. And if none have been removed, you score 0. So basically, while there are 6 objective markers on the field, while both firewall objective markers are up on the field, uplink A and B are worth 0 victory points. The moment someone removes one of firewall A or firewall B, the appropriate objective then suddenly becomes worth 1 victory point, and then 2 if both are removed. So you may think, oh, you know, like this is the way I used to play it. You'd run them, disconnect both firewalls, and then you go, cool. If I disconnect firewall BBAA in one turn, I've got 4 victory points. But then the problem you have is, noticeably in this game, you're not capped by how many turning points per turn you can score. So you could theoretically disconnect firewall A, B, or both A and B, and then hold uplink A and B to gain, well, 8 victory points in a single turn. But the thing I found really interesting in this game is the player who actually focuses on disconnecting firewalls A or B first then ends up sacrificing uplink B, because all of a sudden, let's say I've got an operative on uplink B and my opponent disconnects both Bs. Sure, they've got 2 points, but now uplink B is now worth 2 points. So the really cool thing about this game, well, this mission, while it's a bit confusing at first, once you understand how it works, it actually becomes a mind game between you and your opponent. Sometimes if I'm playing against a certain opponent, I'll go, cool, are you gonna, like, you disconnect the first firewall, like firewall A. I'll move on to B. Now I know you can't get within B, so that's worth 1. Do you want to disconnect firewall A? You'll get a 2nd victory point, but then I will get 2 victory points for holding A. And notably, you can no longer disconnect. Once you've disconnected those objectives, they're gone. So you don't actually want to burn the firewall objectives as soon as possible. You actually want to delay until you're in a position where you can control the uplink objectives. So it's a really tactical mission. Sure, you do have some exploitation if you can forward deploy your operatives, like I said, with loot and salvage. But this mission is, I find, really tactical. And it's against a skilled opponent can be really tough, especially if they're fast as well. So actually there's a lot of mind games while focusing on the action point system of the game, which is what I really like. And yeah, this is why I think it's a really good mission. It's punishing, but in a good way, and it kind of punishes you from going, I'm going to alpha all the objectives. Yeah, I've burnt all the firewalls, but then if you don't control the uplinks, or you lose control of the uplinks, your plan can massively backfire. So yeah, it's just a really good test of your game knowledge and your opponent's skill. So that's why I think it's a really good mission to play. For my third mission, this is 2.1 Escalation. So as you may notice, it's another 6 objective mission, which you may be noticing a theme of. And the rules for this mission is critical escalation. At the end of the second and third initiative phases, starting with the player who has initiative, each player removes one objective marker that is closest to their drop zone. And then for the mission objective, at the end of the first and second turning point, for each objective marker a friendly operative controls, you gain 1 VP up to a maximum of 4 per turn, or turning point. And then at the end of the third and fourth turning point, for each objective marker you control, it's 2 VPs. So effectively, you start off with 6 objectives in turning point 1. Then after turning point 2's initiative phase, well, the start of it anyway, you go down to 4 objectives. And then from the end of the third initiative phase, you go, well, the start of the third initiative phase, you go to 2 central objectives. So it goes from 6 to 4 to 2. And as you can see, you've got some generous drop zone size with 6-inch, whereas the other, the previous one, Awaken the Day Splits, was diagonal. But I think this mission is great. Now, what I like about it, while it doesn't have any action point modification relating to controlling the objectives, you've got it's kind of like a King of the Hill in a way. You've got this, like if you've been playing like PUBG or stuff, you've got this area of engagement that's slowly getting more and more centralized. So effectively, you start off with 6 objectives each. You go, okay, I can control. If we both control 4, generally there's 6. So if we control 3 each, we're tied. Or even if we control 2 each, we're tied. And then you go start at turning point 2. You go, okay, there's 4. So it gets a bit more dicey. You have to move a bit more into the center. And then turning point 3 onwards, there's only 2. So now it's a fight for the middle. And what I really like is you've got this slow advancement into the middle. It's not like your normal 6 mission objectives where you just sit there going, there's 6 objectives, I'll hold them eventually. It stops you, it punishes you if you're slow and if you're not paying attention to the speed of the game. Because if your opponent is going to those objectives fast, they may actually move on to the center objectives first, not to just deny you scoring them, but to set it up so when it comes to turning points 2 and 3, they have a nice foothold while you may have played too defensively and focusing on your easy to backfield. So you've got this really nice dichotomy. And once again, if you're a shooty kill team, turning point 1, you've got that ability to sit back. But then turning point 2 and onwards, you have to play more aggressively, which is what I like. It encourages you to move forwards to your opponent without directly forcing you to. You could still sit back, but you will know eventually you will run out of objectives to hold and leave your opponent with free reign to control the center. And it encourages balanced kill team construction because you do need shooty operatives because obviously for turning point 1 and 2, you need that shooting threat. But then arguably from turning point 2 and onwards, you need that melee threat for the eventual scrum in the center of the game. So yeah, it's a really cool and fun mission. It's pretty balanced, and once again, it's a good test of your kill team roster selection and your general player skill in terms of the game. So once again, it's probably my favorite mission in the current pack for kill team. It's just really cool. Then for my 4th favorite mission, which is, a lot, you've got mission 3.1, which is Secure Archaeotech. So as you notice, it's another 6 objective mission, but it has special rules. So you have Disengage Tech, which is for 1 action point. An operative can perform this while in black of the center of a non-disengaged objective marker it controls. That marker is now disengaged. Secure Tech, the pickup action can be formed upon a disengaged objective marker. While an operative is carrying a disengaged objective marker, it cannot perform dash actions. And then your mission objectives, each time you perform a disengaged tech action, you get 1 victory point. And at the end of the battle, for each disengaged objective marker you control, you score 2 victory points. And notice there's no cap on the primary. So the interesting thing with this mission is you can't just immediately pick up these objectives. It's in fact the only mission in the game that allows you to pick up objectives. First, you have to disengage them for an action point, and then after that, anyone can pick them up. So your opponent or yourself. So you have to be kind of careful, because if you go into the situation where you run and disengage an objective and then you lose control, your opponent could just run and pick it up. And while you get 1 VP for disengaging, you get 2 victory points at the end of the battle for holding an objective. So you could theoretically somehow, turning point 1, disengage all of them and get 6 victory points. But then if you're not holding them, and your opponent's holding them all, they'll score 12. So as I said, you've got 6 objectives and it focuses on the action point mechanic. But not only does it do that, you have to be smart about how you disengage these objectives to pick up. Sometimes you actually don't disengage them immediately. You move up and then set up so you have 2 operatives on that. So even if someone dies, you still have net control of that objective marker. And yeah, it's just a really tactical game with a lot of board space you need to control. And it's just... yeah, obviously APL free teams have more benefits here, but that kind of pushes more towards elite teams who generally have more action points to use. And yeah, it's just a really fun and tactical mission. You have to gauge when you disengage and when you actually pick up objectives, because obviously you're going to disengage your closest one, pick it up and then hide, but you kind of want to leave operatives who are carrying objectives in this range where they're reachable, but not actually reachable in terms of, yeah, your opponent can run and charge and kill this guy or girl, but then they'll be in range of all your other operatives. So you kind of, or even if you go to your opponent like, cool, I've got this objective, now I'm going to like teleport away or whatever. And then just your opponent knowing, damn, even if they haven't, even if they have disengaged that, knowing they're down 2 victory points forever is really cool. Like it once again punishes slow teams or people playing too defensively, because you need to be able to get into your opponent's face, but in a position where you're either disengaging and capturing, or making sure even if the objective's been disengaged, you're capturing it to secure that 2 victory points. So yeah, it's a really balanced tactical mission that doesn't benefit for deploying too much. Obviously, if you can deploy onto one of these forward objectives in the center or the center line of the board, you can immediately go disengage and pick up and then start running away. But then if there's no terrain near that objective, you've just got someone in the open doing that. So there's a lot of give and take. And yeah, it's just one of the best missions in the game. Really tough, but a good test of player skill. Now we come to the missions that I think are okay. They do have some flaws, some pros, but generally they're just fine. They could have some minor tweaks here and there, but generally they're okay. So starting off, we have mission 2.2, which is Seize Ground. So Seize Ground is another 6 objective mission. It has the special rule Secure Ground. At the end of each turning point, each objective marker for any operative controls is secured by your kill team. While an objective marker is secured by your kill team, it stays under their control, even if no friendly operatives are within white of it. If any enemy operatives control their objective marker following the normal rules for controlling objective markers, it is no longer secured by your kill team. Then the mission objective, at the end of each turning point, you score 1 victory point for as follows. If you control 2 or more objectives, you get 1 VP. If you control more objectives marker than your opponent, you score 1 VP. If you control any objective markers in your opponent's kill zone half, you score 1 VP. And then if you control 2 or more objective markers in your opponent's kill zone half, you score an additional VP. So there is no cap on this, but the maximum you can score is 4 VP a turn. And the cool thing about this mission, you're not actually spending action points to capture these objectives. You want to control them at the end of a turning point, and then you can move away. So the interesting thing comes here. You don't actually just want to go, oh, I'll run and kill my opponent on the point, and then just, I'll stand there and claim it. If you then die and they've already claimed it, they still own it. So, and it is a more costly mission, because what generally happens, each player ends up controlling their first 3 objectives, and then it becomes whoever loses more operatives first, then allows the person with more operatives to push in and start claiming objectives. Because it's not just about rushing in and, spending an action point to claim an objective as you have in other missions. It's rushing in, clearing the point, and making sure your opponent doesn't get anyone else back on the point, and the operative of yours also stays alive so you control the point. So it's actually a mission that's quite difficult to max out, but because it can become quite of a stalemate, it kind of can benefit kill teams that maximize shooting and can castle up. Because if they know they can score more tac ops than you, if they're playing security, for example, they can kind of go, I'm just going to get 3 victory points a turn. I'll still max out 12 on my primary, and then I would just come down to my tac ops, which I think I can score. So that's the only downside, but it's pretty even either way. You know, it's still easy to lose that as a castly gun line, but you kind of have the freedom to play as that playstyle with this mission. So overall, I think it's just, you know, a nice balanced mission. Maybe if you had a faster way to claim these objectives, it would be nicer, but it's just fine. It's just a standard mission, which, you know, doesn't really have any problems. And even advanced deploying doesn't help too much in this mission because, as I said, controlling objectives is determined at the end of the turning point, so it doesn't matter how far you get up early. All that matters is who's on the turning point, who's on the objective at the end of the turning point. Next, we have mission 2.3, which is domination. Now, I was actually considering putting this on a mission I didn't like, but I'll get to that in a minute. So, it's mission rules. So, claim ground is one action point. An operative can perform this while within white of an objective marker controls, and until an enemy operative performs this action on that objective marker, it is claimed by your kill team. For the mission rules, at the end of the turning point, you score one victory point if you claim 2 or more objectives. If more objectives markers are claimed by than your opponent, you get 1 victory point. And for each objective marker in your opponent's kill zone, well, drop zone that you control, you get 1 victory point. So you're getting a maximum of 4 per turn. But the main problem I have with this mission is the drop zone is really deep. So it's actually the biggest drop zone in the game. So you're playing long ways, which is actually quite fine when you're playing with 6-inch deep drop zones, but this is 9 inches. And the problem with it being 9 inches is not only does it allow melee teams just to run straight into the opponent quite early and kind of breaks tac ops, like the recon one, like over like being in each table quadrant, because it just like it's so easy to get into the other table quadrants. And the main issue though is because it's 9-inch deep, as a TO, it's really hard to not set up terrain with vantage points in the drop zone because the drop zone is just so huge. And that's the main downside for this mission, because the problem I find with kill team games is when you have drop zones and when you have vantage point terrain in the drop zone, and there's really no way around it in this mission. It's just so tough because of the deep drop zones. But outside of that, it's nice that it has 5 objectives, so it always comes down to who controls the center. And that's kind of its weakness, because it's just weird. Unless you're really mobile, it becomes a showdown for who has the free. So it's difficult to max out, and you know, it does benefit a bit more if you're more shooty and more of a gun line, because you know, if you can just go, I can control all these 3, you can rush onto there and run up and claim it. I'll shoot you off and then move up and claim it myself. So it's still a balanced mission, because, you know, even if you're gun lining, there's such a huge drop zone. It's really easy for melee operatives to get into range. But yeah, it's like, I would have liked this mission more if the drop zones were just 6 inches deep. That's the main downside, that it's 9. But otherwise, it's still a solid mission. It's just, as a TO, more than the player, as the TO, you need to be really considerate about how you're setting up the vantage points. The best compromise I have seen is you try and set up the vantage point so they're still within the drop zone, but the defensible piece of light terrain is not light cover, so they have to effectively move up into the light cover to get most use out of the vantage point. So it's more bad for the TO than the player. As a player, it's okay. It's actually pretty balanced, but yeah, basically 9-inch drop zones become a problem for TOs, which is why this is just okay. So for my next mission that I consider fine, it's just mission 2.3, Duel of Wits. So this mission is a 5 objective mission with, well, you know, slanted drop zones. But the mission special rule is priority objectives. So in the target reveal step of each turning point, starting with the player who has initiative, each player sets one objective marker that is more than blue from their drop zone to be a priority objective marker until the start of the next turning point. Operatives can perform the following mission action, which is Gambit for 1 action point. An operative can perform this action while within white of a non-exhausted priority objective marker it controls, gain 1 CP until the start of the next turning point, until that objective marker is exhausted. So for the mission objective, each time your friendly operative performs the Gambit action, you score 1 VP, and at the end of each turning point, if a friendly operative controls more objective markers than the enemy operatives, you score 2 victory points. So there are 5 objectives, and each turning point, each player nominates 2 of the central 3 objectives to be a primary objective. So you can't nominate the same one to be primary. So you effectively have your closest ones, which you're always going to control, hopefully. And then you've got 2 primary objectives, which you need to exhaust immediately. So why this is not so great, in my opinion, is because that you also gain a command point when you exhaust a gambited objective, which isn't so bad if you are a compendium team. But against the bespoke kill teams, the one with like the full rules, suddenly giving them advantage to like more command points is huge. For example, like, you know, commandos can forward deploy onto basically any of these 3 central objectives and immediately go, yeah, you know what, I'm going to make the one like I've sneaked onto, that's going to be my primary, and immediately claim it. But because you could do like 2 guys, you could effectively go, I'm going to get one, and the like your opponent's going to go for the central one, and then you go, cool. If I'm going first, you just run up to that and claim it. So it's the way to get victory points from this is quite slow as well. So generally, you need to control more than your opponent, and then if you gambit both objectives, you're getting 4 victory points while your opponent has 0. But if your opponent gambits both, then they get 2 victory points. But if they don't control, then they get 2. But if you control more and you gambit 1, you gain 3, they gain 1. So it's not very swingy. It can be quite swingy. It matters who has the best board control, which is why I think it's just okay. Like, as I said, the thing I don't like about so much that it gives command points as well, which is crazy. But it's a really interesting mission. I think I would have preferred it if you just get 1 victory point for holding an objective, max 4. Because it's a snowball mission. So if you start scoring max on the primary first, it's very easy for you to continue scoring 4, at least before your opponent can get into into position. And it really punishes slow kill teams and those who can't forward deploy. So it's still quite balanced, as I said, but it becomes problematic in certain scenarios. So it's not bad. I still like that it's 5 objectives. So it's always going to come down to who controls the most. But gambiting is really important as well. So, you know, you've still got that element of doing action points to claim objectives, but you still need to have battlefield control. So you need to be mobile and defensive. So I think it's a nice balance, just with a few flaws. Now we come onto the missions which I don't like for various reasons, mainly because they're mechanically unbalanced. And yeah, if you were a TO, I would highly advise not to use these missions. So you probably know what they all are because there's only 2 left. So the first one I'll go over is 1.2, Consecration. So Consecration is a 5 objective mission with odd quarter drop zones, and it has special missions rules. When a player sets up an operative, it must be wholly within one of their drop zones. Operatives can perform the following mission actions: consecrate ground for 1 action point. An operative can perform this action while within white of a non-consecrated objective marker it controls. Until the start of the next turning point, the objective marker is consecrated, the operative's APL and defense characteristics and attacks characteristics of its melee weapon are increased by 1. At the end of each turning point, each consecrated objective marker you control is worth 1 victory point, to a maximum of 4 per turning point. So the biggest problem here is not the benefits of consecrating an objective. It's the fact that the objective markers are so close and there's currently no ruling against it. But if you have a 40 mil or even a 32 mil base, those 3 central objectives, so the ones going down the middle of the board, if you're in the middle of either, you're contesting both with a 32 mil or larger base. And, you know, you may go, oh, you're just standing in the open. But if you've consecrated one of those and then move into the middle, it's really like your 4 defense, depending on what other saves, especially of invons. And the problem is your opponent's now going, it's just really weird. I think it's unintentionally they didn't realize that the 3 objectives are too close to each other. They're only 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, they're 5 inches apart. So if you have a large enough base, you can contest and control both. Now you can only consecrate one of them, but the problem is, it just causes weird interactions. And the problem with this, when custodies were like not nerfed, they could just go, I'm going to consecrate one of these, move in between like the middle of these. I'm defense 4 with a 2-up save, 4-up invuln if I have the shield, and I have like APL 5 for determining like to contest these objectives, because you don't get the benefit of the APL, but you count as 1 APL high for trying to contest until the start of the next turning point. So your opponent goes like, even if you're a Marine, you're 4 APL for contesting purposes, but Custodies was 5. So it's just, that's the biggest problem. And for terrain wise, because the drop zones are so weird, it's just a weird mission to play. And as a TO, it's weird to set up terrain for. It's just so odd. And once, if you're playing with someone who knows that they can, if they have large enough bases that they can contest these free, if there's enough terrain in the way and as a TO you weren't prepared, your opponent can just go, I'm going to consecrate that and now I'm contesting the center, or I'm controlling the center, so I'm contesting the one closest to player A's drop zone. It just has a lot of mechanic problems, which is why I don't like it, and I would advise you not to play it. And it's just a really confusing mission if you're not aware with how APL modification works, because it's only a maximum of 1, and then, you know, it's that weird scenario where you've got defense 4. So yeah, it's a nice idea of a mission on paper, but in practice it's very flawed. And yeah, I would highly advise any TO not to play this mission. It's just too exploitable and not in a good way. And then finally, we have mission 3.3, which you already know I don't like if you're a regular viewer, Master the Terminals. And it seems to be the most popular mission at every tournament I go to. And I'll get into the mission first. So there's only 4 objectives and it's diagonal drop zones. So the special rules are fluctuating power. After selecting drop zones, starting with the attacker, each player alternates selecting an objective marker and assigns it a number from 1 to 4. Each objective marker can have no more than 1 number assigned to it, and each number must be unique. During each turning point, the objective marker that is the number corresponds to the current turning point, is offline. And then operatives can perform the divert power for 1 action point. An operative can perform this while within black of an objective marker it controls that is not offline and has not been secured during this turning point. Until the start of the next turning point, the objective marker is secured, and you get 1 VP for each objective you divert. So if you've already realized, if you're the attacker, you get a huge benefit in this mission, because you go, oh, I get to turn the first objective off. Okay, I'm going to turn off player. I'm going to put objective 1 where the defender is closest to, and then your defender goes, I'll put 2 where you're closest to, and then 3 or 4 is the diagonal. Either way, it doesn't matter. So the biggest problem I have is it's a very snowbally mission, as in terms of if you can dominate the board early, you snowball ahead. Your opponent has almost no way to catch up. Every time I've played this mission, it's in a way where I just go, I'm going to swarm the points because I know I can win on primary and then score enough of my tac ops to just win. And that's how it's always worked for me, especially if you can forward deploy. And forward deploy is broken on this game because of how it works. But the biggest problem I have with this mission is it highly favors the attacker. And if you're playing symmetrical terrain, it makes it even worse, because going second is, like, being the defender is only a downside in this mission. Like, it's incredibly hard for you as the defender to win this mission, and it's just so flawed. Like, I think they should have had a 5th objective that should have been in the center, or you can't turn off the objectives that are closest to each drop zone during turning point 1. So then or even turning point 1 and 2, just because it's so bad that this mission basically comes down to a dice roll. And while I have one as the defender, that's because I've had forward deployment tricks and my opponent hasn't. So I've managed to forward deploy, win deployment, and then go forward and claim their ones before they can claim it. And that's the kind of problem with this mission. It's so exploitable and can almost come down to a dice roll. And the reason I think people are using it so much is because Warhammer World did it for their second tournament, And I feel Warhammer World did it because they wanted to test it out, because they already had ideas that this mission wasn't good and they want to see it in practice. And if for some reason every tournament seems to be running Master the Terminals, please don't run Master the Terminals. Like, as I said, it heavily favors the attacker. It heavily gets broken if you had 4 deployment tricks. If you're playing symmetrical terrain, it makes the game infinitely worse for the defender, because they just go, well, you know, I've lost the roll-off. I'm just going to pray the game goes my way. Yeah, there's only 4 objectives. It's a massive... It can massively snowball in one person's favor. It's such an unfair mission that I feel a lot of kill teams just lose on, depending on what they're like. A compendium team generally loses this mission if they're playing against a bespoke kill team, or you have no forward deployment tricks. You may win as the attacker and then your opponent goes, I forward deploy. Or if they're, which is worse, when they're attacker, they go, I'm the attacker and I forward deploy and claim everything. So yeah, please, no one masters the terminals. I've already said this before, but people keep picking this mission. Just don't. You'll have a much funner time as a TO and a player if you don't have mastered the terminals. It's why I've only done it once on stream. I've played it, I mean, for bat reps, I've played it so many times. It's just unfun and broken in so many bad ways. But yeah. So yeah, those are my favorite missions I consider okay, and my worst. I will be interested to hear what you think. I think what will probably cause the most contention is probably, Awaken the Data Spirits, I think. A lot of people don't like that, or Secure Archaeotech, but I'm a big fan of missions that force you to do more than killing and just standing on objectives. I really like missions that involve you doing action points to do stuff. And like, I really like Secure Archaeotech because not only do you have to claim it, you then have to pick it up and hold, like, it's like capture the flag and hoping you stay alive. Really cool. And I think those kind of missions are the best because, yeah, they're not just about killing. It's more about being maneuverable and having your right action point management, which I think accentuates the best parts of Kill Team. And then my standard missions, you know, I think they're just fine. As they have some flaws. I think the biggest thing is they're kind of stalematey, as in they're either easy to stalemate or they have a bit more advantage to sitting back and just shooting. But overall, they're fairly balanced. And then the missions I don't like are just mechanically broken and unfair in multiple ways. And please, just don't run them. Like, do them once, you know, do them once to see how it is. But if you're doing tournaments regularly, you know, I'm not saying never. Well, I am saying never run these, but if you're like doing regular tournaments, like, I don't know, one every quarter or every 2 months, you know, maybe do like Consecration or Master of the Terminals once every 6 months, something like that. You know, because variety is nice. Because if you're playing the same missions all the time, it's boring. But if you're just doing like a few tournaments a year, I would stay away from those last two. They're just very problematic in general, especially with like Consecration's unintentional ability to control both objectives or contest both objectives, and then just Master the Terminals. Like, yeah, with Master the Terminals, it's just so broken. I didn't want to get into the symmetrical versus asymmetrical terrain debate because some people get very emotional over it, but it makes symmetrical terrain even worse because as the defender, it's just, you're in two, not only do you don't get any, you get like no advantage from picking a different drop zone, the attack has even more power because they can choose what objective to turn off. So yes, please stay away from those two. And like, for some reason, the London events keep running like Master the Terminals. I don't know, please stop running Master the Terminals. But yeah, let me know. I'll be interested to see what people think. It's interesting. I feel like a lot of people haven't really talked about them too much, but yeah, I hope this look at the missions was interesting as well as based on my standing points and recommendations. So yeah, please remember to like and subscribe and comment. So I'd be really interested to hear what you say. Let me know what you thought of the video, and what else you'd like to hear from me about Kill Team, because I'll be back on the Kill Team's train. So hopefully I can have some more bat reps soon-ish. But I've got more tactical videos coming up soon. So it should be really fun. I think it was really fun doing this video. I've wanted to talk about this for a while. Obviously, I had no voice for a long time. But I should be doing this as an article as well, hopefully. But this is past John, so if it's down in the episode description, then yay me. If not, then I don't have time. But yeah, I'll be back soon. So remember, until next time, no matter how many objectives you control, they won't be able to save you if you can always roll a crit.